Okay, this is Wednesday, September 12th, and I haven't made a video for a while, so I thought I'd make a brief video today on the S&P E-mini trading and show how over at processtrading.com we're trying to take trading from a system to a science and how we do that process. You can see the screen here. Here's the primary trading screen. We use a specific volume indicator here that has unique colors to it that give us an idea of what is happening to the price as it goes along. Here is a 1 minute tick chart for the NYSE. Here is support and resistance. This is based off of the sine wave. And over here is a 4,500 tick bar chart, and you can't see that so well, but when I expand it, I look for the timing alert dots specifically. But really, what I primarily use is over here on the 1,500 tick bar chart. I have the indicators from the processtrading.com website and the right edge trading system, and when I see the appropriate time to take a trade, I just use the trade station matrix over here. The blue is to go long, the red is to go short. So let's look at this screen in more detail for today and see how our trades would have occurred. Now we're going to start at 9:30, and that 9:30 is right over in this time frame right here. Here's where 9:30 starts. So we're going to start analyzing the chart over here. Now today was a good day for using the three types of trades that we take. We take trend trades, contrarian trades, and discretionary trades. And let me briefly tell you how those work. On a trend trade, you use the VWAP here. When it's gray, that says that the trend is in a downtrend, and when it's yellow, it's in an uptrend. The other colors mean that when it's gray, that's a normal downtrend. Then when it's red, it's extended, and when it's white, it's overextended. And you can see when it gets overextended, there can occur a bounce. Here is the opposite. You have the yellow, which is normal. The green says it's extended. And then let's see. Let's see if I can find you an occurrence. Okay, and when it's an uptrend and it gets overextended, it's blue there. So those are the trending dots. Now let's go back over to our screen here and our 9:30 time frame, which is right in here. So the way that we take those trend trades was when the VWAP is gray, you can take a long or short trade anytime you have a timing alert dots. That's these blue dots above and below the price bars. When it's gray, you can take a short trade anytime the trending alert dot is above the price bar. When it's yellow, you can take a trend trade anytime the timing alert dot is below the price bar. And the idea here is to sell into weakness and to buy into strength. So that's how you take a trend trade. When you take a counter trend trade, price has to have reached or went above or below either the upper contraband or the lower contraband. These are where you can take counter trend trades. Anything in between there when you take a trade is a discretionary trade. And the way that you take a discretionary trade is you use the three indicators below the price panel. You use the Intergy, you use the momentum oscillator, and you use the short-term trend oscillator. And in particular, when you're taking a discretionary trade, for a long trade, the Intergy has to be above the zero line. That's right here. It has to be above the zero line. And the fast momentum has to be above the slow momentum, or you can think of it as the strong momentum here. And the short-term trend has to be green. Just the opposite for when you're taking a discretionary short trade. The Intergy has to be red. The fast momentum has to be below the strong momentum, and the short-term trend has to be red. So let's just start over here and see what we're looking at. Right over here is the 9:30 time frame where it opens up. The first thing that we see is the VWAP is gray. So if we're looking for trend trades, we're looking to go short here. Now, we don't have any short trades. We're letting it develop. Here's the price cycle bars. That's these white and gray and yellow bars here. And they determine the cycle that the price is in, such as here we have selling at the top, and this looks like buying at the bottom right here, and to some degree, especially with the timing alert dot, they thought it was, but you want to use the rest of the indicators to verify that, and we'll see, because if you take a trade here, it's going to be, especially in long trade, it's going to be a discretionary trade that's going against the trend, and clearly it's not a contrarian trade because it never came close to the contraband. So you'd have to be very careful on taking that trade. But these price cycle bars give you some indication of what is happening with price, and in particular, they tell you that when unusually high volume or unusually high dollar amounts are taking place, and they will reflect selling at the top and buying at the bottom, and we'll see some of that as we go along here. So you always want to be aware of the price cycles. So back over here, we saw some activity right here. That's the beginning. We don't see that price cycle complete at all. And so we do have a timing alert dot. It's going contrary to the VWAP here. So we are actually not going to take that. And then when it gets up here, we have the VWAP turning yellow for this period. And right at this timing alert dot here that says you could take a short trade, the VWAP is yellow. So we're not taking that short trade. If we were to take that short trade, there's two ways that we can take the trend trade. We cannot take that as a trend trade, but if we were able to, we use the first range right here. We use these range values to do it. Like, for instance, this one, if we were to go short, we would go short by putting our entry at 88.75 and our exit at 90.50 with 87.50 at risk there. So, but at any rate, we are not taking that trade because the VWAP is yellow. So what we're looking at here, we're going along, and on the discretionary type trades, we could take the discretionary trade right here. Right at this point here, we could take a discretionary trade, because at this point, you can see if you go down to the Intergy, the momentum oscillator, and the short-term trend, they're all in agreement. And you want to do it as soon as they all three come into agreement. One of the things that you want to be cautious about is that the closer the fast momentum is to the strong momentum here, the better that discretionary trade is likely to be. And this makes sense down here with this momentum, because if you have momentum, and we know the price follows momentum, then you're going to have a fast momentum, and that has to drag the strong momentum either up or drag it down. And depending on how that strong momentum reacts is also another indicator of how we might take a trade. So we're going along here. That could have, right there, could have been our first discretionary trade to the long side. So we would have got in at the close right here, and we would have got out here, up there, maybe grabbed a point. Listen, and then as we move along, we're looking for another trade. Now, from here, not until here, we do not have any more timing alert dots. However, we're looking to see, do we have any discretionary trades? And right here is a potential discretionary trade, just because that is red there. Then over here we have another potential discretionary trade, which is a better trade, because on this one, as we see, the strong momentum has moved away from the short momentum. So the closer we can get to those when they cross, the better. Such as right over here, we have the fast momentum coming down below the strong momentum. We have the Intergy being red and the short-term trend being red. So right there is a good discretionary trade. So the way that we get in that is we take it at the close, which is 87.50 to the short side. Now, getting in there, we can actually watch the discretionary indicators to help us know whether we're going to stay in or get out of the trade. Well, in this particular case, the short-term trend stayed red up until here. Right there, it turned green. Also right there, we see that the fast momentum is crossing from the lower bound of the oscillator and crossing the strong momentum, and it is starting to drag that up. So right here is a cross. So we would exit we would have exited either on this timing alert dot here that is close to the contraband line, or we would exit on the next bar, which would be or on the first time that we have a green down here in the short-term trend and the crossing of the momentum lines. So in this particular case, we went from a close of 87.50 down, let's say the worst case scenario, let's say the high of this was 81.50, so that was 6 points at the worst case scenario, and more likely we would have got like 7 points out of that. So that would have been our first trade today. So now looking at the next trade, and we're always looking at where's a good trend trade. Well, here's a potential trend trade, because you can take this to the short side because as a trend trade, because you have a timing alert dot above the price bars and you have a gray VWAP, so you can take it to the short side. But you have these mitigating factors that the Intergy is green as well as the short-term trend is green and the strong momentum is green and sloping up. So likely that's not a good short trade to take. As well as remember on the discretionary side, we took the trade to the long side right here where we have the first green Intergy bar. We have the fast momentum crossing up above the strong momentum, and we have the short-term trend line turning green. So that's the first place they all agree. It's near that crossing point that I was talking about. So this would have been a good long trade. So we take this trade here, a long trade, and then we follow our discretionary indicators to see how long we're going to stay in. And so we look at the energy, and actually when it gets over here, it starts to build with it. So we're staying with it, and it doesn't actually change. The short-term trend doesn't change till over here. So right here, up here at this dot where the timing alert dot is above the contraband, this is where we would have exited our long trade, and so we would have went from whatever the close is here, we would have went from 82.25 up to this doji here, let's say, and well, let's just say 94.25. So that's 12 points right there. And at this point, we have price going up to the contrarian line. So now we can take a counter trend trade. Everything below this is a discretionary trade, but this is a counter trend trade right here because price is at the contraband. We have a timing alert dot. So we take that to the short side. The way that we do that is we get in at the close again. And so the close here is 94.25. And let's shift this over. Let me do that. We're going to shift that over. Let's see how much more, if I can get the whole day in here. Okay, great. So we got in here at 94.25. Now we watch the discretionary indicators to see how long we're going to stay in this trade. Well, here we have the Intergy bar where we see weakness coming in. We see an end of trend, or I mean either an end of trend or a move down or an end of down bar within the Intergy. That's this white bar here. And then we see weakness in the Intergy, that's these gray bars, so that we see price cycle bars up here, which indicate selling at the top. We know it's selling at the top because price follows momentum, and momentum is at the top, and it's starting to cut down through the upper bound, and it's starting to cut down through the stronger momentum. So we're going to, as we got in there, because of our trend, or our counter trend trade, because of the timing alert dot and the price bars being at the contraband line here, we took that trade there. Had we not taken that trade there, then we likely would have taken the downtrend trade right here, because here's our first red bar on the Intergy, as well as now the fast momentum is below the stronger momentum, and the short-term trend is red. So as a discretionary trade, we could have taken it there, but we actually got into it up here at the counter trend trade alert. And if we took that all the way down to this timing alert dot, which we would have right here, at the very least, we would be seeing that the energy is starting to dissipate because of these gray bars. And here's a trending alert dot. So, and we don't really know if that's an uptrend or downtrend, but we don't want to have taken this profit and give it back in an uptrend here. So at the very least, we get out right here when the momentum starts to come up from the upper bound. But let's say we did it correctly, because remember, here's our price cycle bars. And this is selling at the top. This right here is buying at the bottom. And we can tell it's at the bottom because price follows momentum. And here's momentum at the bottom. And we know that what the pros do, they sell at the top and buy at the bottom. So that we know is buying at the bottom. So in effect, we would have got out right here. And if that would have given us a close of 94.25 down to, let's go ahead and take the worst case scenario, which would be the high, 84.50. So 94.25 to 84.50, nine and 3/4 points. So that would have been our next trade. And so now we're following along here. The VWAP is yellow, and now it turns, remember, gray is going to be gray, and the red's extended, and white is overextended. So that's another reason where we would have exited that trade. So now we're looking to see for if a trend trades exist. Here's a trend trade. Well, that actually is yellow there, so we're not going to take that. That would be a discretionary trade. We're looking for a trend trade that is down. Here is a timing alert dot that is above the price bars, and the VWAP is gray, so you can take a trade to the downside, except when we look at the discretionary indicators, we see that the energy is green. We see that the momentum is up, and the stronger momentum is also heading up, and we see the short-term trend is green. So we're not going to go against that, even though the VWAP is down. Now the VWAP turns yellow. So now any trend trade we take, we're looking for an uptrend trade, a long trade. But also at this point, we're looking to see where would our next discretionary trade. Well, if we were to take a discretionary trade, we can see right here that the energy is green. The fast momentum is above the stronger momentum, and the short-term trend is green. And this is the first point right here where that exists at that down alert dot. We'd actually be taking that as a discretionary trade to the opposite, to the long side, and we'd take it from here up to this dot here. Now, when we look at this dot here we see selling at the top. How do we know it's selling at the top? Again, we know the price follows momentum, and we see that the short momentum is cutting down through the stronger momentum, and the stronger momentum is starting to slope down as well. We see that energy is dissipated from over here, where there was a lot of buyers. Now less buyers are coming in, and we see the short-term trend turning. So we know that's selling at the top, but we would like to see the end of that cycle, and that is over here. Here is buying at the bottom, and here is more buying at the bottom. And in fact, if we took our, we're not taking these trades because they would be discretionary trades against the trend. So we're not going to take that. And so we look over here, and for a discretionary trade, the next discretionary trade is we have the Intergy green right here. We have the fast momentum crossing the strong momentum right here, and we have the short-term trend is green as well. This is the point where they all agree right here. So we would take a long trade right here at the close, and that close was 85.75, and we would follow our discretionary indicators at least until it got to this trend alert dot here, or this crossing of momentum right here. So at this point here, at that alert dot right there, if we went from, as we said, we were at 85.75, and we got out at this dot, worst case scenario would be the low, would be 90.50. So it would be 3 3/4 points from where we entered the discretionary trade right here at 86.75 up to the worst case scenario here where the low was 90.50. So you could get 3 3/4, 4 points here. So that's how we are taking trading, so you can read it, and you have the three types of trades you're looking at: the trend trade, the counter trend trade, and the discretionary trades. And it tells you when the timing alert dots are in your favor and how long you might want to stay in the trade. So, well, that's it. The video was a little longer than I actually intended to make it, but I hadn't made one for a while, and I wanted to show you how effective the indicators are and how you would read them going along from the open of today. So that's it. Hope you had a good trading day, and hope to see you on the next video.